All right, next up we have drawing on the map. This is one that can be helpful in a couple ways. Sometimes you might be getting users to submit points or submit polygons, like if you're trying to collect information from people. It can also be helpful if you need to do spatial analysis on the fly. So, if you have some kind of map, like let's say the city of London, and you want to have the ability for users to measure how long roads are or things like that, you might want to add this, and then they could draw a line that covers a road, and then you'd be able to measure that using turf and things like that. Obviously, we're getting into like complicated mapping applications, but that's where you're going. So how do we add this basic drawing, and then how are we going to get the shapes out once they're in? Like, what's going on here? Well, luckily there are some really good libraries for this, because this is normal enough, common enough thing that you see happening, that there's really great libraries, and we're going to see those for Leaflet and for MapLibra. So for Leaflet, it's something called Leaflet Draw, and we're going to have something called MapLibra Draw or Mapbox GL Draw. It's actually not MapLibra, it's a Mapbox thing. So there's where they're interacting again. So LDraw is set up. It looks like it's actually part of Leaflet. It might actually be part of the Leaflet GitHub now. And it's all the documentation is set up to look exactly the same. So it's very familiar. It's a very core part of this library. That being said, I do find the documentation is a little imperfect. It's kind of gone a little out of date, and some of the things about it are off, right? So for instance, in the usage example, it doesn't actually tell me like how to include the files. So I'd have to go to the full demo to really figure that out. And I did find the documentation to be kind of unreliable in some places. I was kind of adding some stuff and then it didn't work right off the bat. And I had to go look around in the GitHub, and I found that there's some errors in it. So I just use my example if you can. It might make it a little bit easier for you to do. So, okay, at the start, all that being said, the documentation is there. So, you can dive in. So, okay, the first thing I did is I added Leaflet as usual, and then I added Leaflet Draw, which I went and found from a CDN. Again, look at these files in GitHub to just quickly grab this instead of having to search around for it. Once I added that, there's just one more little option you have to do to add the draw control to the map. You just add this little thing. Let's see, right here, draw control true. So I just did that, LMap, and then it was one of the options we set draw control to true, and that adds this thing on the side of the map. And there's various options we could tell it to, like where we should put it, and should we only show some of these types, like maybe you only want them to draw lines, you don't want them to draw points or circles or whatever. That's all possible to do. That's down here in the documentation in various places here with the toolbar and what's going to be on it and all this crazy stuff. We're not going to get too far into that. Now, other than just adding this to the map and doing your options, the other really important thing that you're never really just having users just draw. You're usually doing something with what they drew. So you need to be able to like capture it once they drew it. So if they draw a line, when they finish the line, you want to like get the line, and then you can save it or you can analyze it or do something. So what we do here is we listen for a special event that the draw library adds called l.draw.event.created. It's got a special name. I don't know what it is, but this is what we put in. We put map.on this created event. Then we have to run this little function. And in this case, I'm only looking for the marker. So in here, I can say, oh, if I got a line, then do this. If I got a polygon, do this. In this case, if I got a marker, console log the layer that was added and add it to the map. Okay, so let's just do that and then come back to it. Okay, so we're going to the marker. We click that, we add it. It adds a marker to the map. And did we console log? We console logged a layer here, which has the latitude and longitude here. Where is it? Underscore lat long, right there. There's the latitude and longitude of this marker, as well as some other information about it, the icon. Really, all you really need is the latitude and longitude for this case. So we could do the same thing with a line. If we wanted to change that to type equals line string or whatever, we might have to look around. We might have to console log type and see what are the different types called? Maybe it's not called line string, maybe it's called line. Anyway, we want to check if type is marker, then do some stuff with it or add a special marker that we want to add onto the map. Okay, so that's the basics of drawing in Leaflet and doing something with the shape you get back. Whatever you might want to do with it, that's up to you. That's on the spatial analysis side, but this is how to actually get it. Now, when it comes to MapLibra, it's actually very, very similar and quite straightforward as well. We have this thing on the side in the top right, which is our line drawing. You can see it's a little different, and it's still got all the basic same things, and it shows them a little differently. It by default puts them on the map. So this uses Mapbox GL Draw, which is a Mapbox library, but is still open source and you can use on any map. So it's okay to use it on a MapLibra map. You don't need a Mapbox API key to use this library. But it's quite extensive, and I've used this many, many a time, and I find it quite good. Its API is quite well documented. It's much more reliable than the Leaflet Draw one, but this is a library where there's a lot of complication going on. It's doing a lot of like adding layers and sources in the background. Like while you're drawing, there's a special layer being added and removed. There's special sources. Then when you finish the drawing, it removes the original and adds a new one and hides and shows. And when you click it again, it does stuff. So it's fairly complicated to really, really get in. But if you're just using it kind of like we were using the Leaflet one, draw and get some information or save some information, it's quite good for that. So for that, we can use this Mapbox GL Draw. So we just make our map as usual. Of course, we've included the code here. This is all like pretty obvious on their example here. They have it quite helpful. They even show you how to measure the area of the polygon that you're drawing. So this example is quite good. So we add the scripts. Okay, that's great. And then what we do is we add the Mapbox GL Draw. There's again some options for what we want to show. Do we want to show polygon? Do we want to show all the default controls, whatever? And then what we do is there's again these events, map.onDraw.create, map.onDraw.delete, and draw.update. This is when you create a shape, this is when you delete a shape, and this is when you edit or change a shape. So if I click on this and then I drag one of these points, map.update will fire. So we can see I've had events firing throughout here, and it'll tell me, oh, they created something, oh, it updated something. It'll give me the feature as a GeoJSON, which is really nice. I can just use that however I want and analyze it. And that basically covers our using these drawing tools on a very basic level, getting you introduced to them. Again, when it comes to doing complicated stuff, you're going to have to dig in and get your hands dirty in that documentation and playing around. Always open to having questions. Fire it at me if you need to. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.